So thank you for joining us this week for our Diversifi Speaker Series. Today we are joined by Medina Jett. Medina, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what it is you've been up to lately?
Sure, Sebastian. So I am Medina Jett, and by way of background, I am an attorney. I've been an attorney for 30 years as of this year. Went to Georgetown Law School, Wesleyan undergrad, and always had a notion towards being a lawyer. That was my dream when I was a kid. I grew up, joined a law firm, one of the largest in the state of Connecticut, and was quite proud of myself. But then I started to realize that I wanted to do something more. The role of an attorney can be very limiting in terms of just advising your clients, where your clients are the ones out running businesses and doing all the things that I just found so exciting. And so eventually I made my way over to running a business. I left the law department. I was in the law department at Aetna at the time, around the late 90s. And I was offered an opportunity to run the group insurance claim operation for Aetna's group insurance business. Very exciting opportunity. I went from managing 2 paralegals to managing a team of 600 claim analysts around the country. Huge opportunity for me, but a huge opportunity to also increase my level of knowledge and proficiency around business and operations. And I think as a result of that, I always had this bug to run a business. And so several years later, I continued this path towards being closer to the business as opposed to legal. And I took on roles focused on compliance. Compliance seemed to be a great spot where you're very business focused, but you also are required to have some proficiency in terms of understanding laws and regulations and really helping the business build out its operations to comply with legal requirements. And so compliance became my bridge, if you will, into knowing more about businesses and being more business focused. Several years into my compliance roles, I started to really get a bug for running a business, right? Because I'm seeing across the entire business. I was the chief compliance officer first at Cigna Investments, and around early 2000s, Prudential purchased Cigna's retirement business, and I became the chief compliance officer at Cigna Retirement, then Prudential Retirement. Then I took a job as a chief compliance officer at the Hartford. So in my career, I sort of made history within at least the sphere I was in within the financial services arena of having been the youngest senior executive. I reached the SVP level at the age of 36. And by the time I was 40, I was in my third senior executive role. But, for some reason, I kept feeling as if I wanted to do more. I wanted to really run a business. And so while I was the senior vice president at the Hartford, I applied to the UConn Business School Executive MBA program.
Well,
I was sponsored by the Hartford, achieved my MBA in 2 years in 2008, and I finally said, I'm going to do this. And so I resigned my spot and started my own company. The company was called Integrated Compliance Solutions Group. I leveraged my compliance expertise and background, but also coupled that with my desire to do sales, business development, marketing, finance, and be a strategic visionary in terms of
right.
leading a company. And so I ran ICSGroup for 12 years. I was the only Black woman to own a company like ICSGroup in the world. And happy to report that as of November 1st, the company was acquired by a private equity backed compliance firm, a
Wow.
much larger firm than we were. And it's sort of the American dream, right? We start a business, we grow it, we scale it, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then eventually it's acquired. And we can realize the rewards of our labor and the generational wealth that really comes from selling a business. And so during the pandemic, while I was considering a sale of ICSGroup, I actually started another company, and the company is called Jett Speaks. And I realized that having spent 30 years as a senior executive in one half of my career, and as a successful award-winning entrepreneur in the other half of my career, that I have a lot to offer people of color in terms of how do you navigate the corporate waters? How do you succeed in getting to a senior executive level despite all the things that are against us? There's so many obstacles, there's so many unwritten rules that we just never knew about. And it's a game in a sense. And so I like to teach people how to be successful at playing that game. And the same with entrepreneurship. So I started my business at the onset of the Great Recession in 2008. And ironically, I ended up selling it during the recession of, during a pandemic in 2020. But there's so much that I've learned about being an entrepreneur and all of the different facets that go into creating and scaling a company, that I also provide coaching for folks who want to either start a business or they have a business, they want to learn how to scale their business, how to get funding for their business. And there's so many different aspects that we just never learn in school, that I want to be that source for people of color to help us be more successful as a community. So that's sort of my story in a nutshell. And I'm happy to be here and talk more about what I'm doing and how I can help other people.
Yeah, you've had quite the incredible path. But so let's start with ICS. So you being not only a minority entrepreneur but a woman of color entrepreneur, what were some of those obstacles that you think you faced throughout your tenure, and you were able to overcome them, and how you kind of trying to address that now with Jett Speaks?
Sure, sure. There's so many obstacles. I think the thing that worked against me the most is the industry that I'm in. I'm in financial services, and financial services has got to be one of the least diverse industries out there. Not just in terms of lack of people of color, but lack of women. There are very few women in it. It's for centuries in an area that's been dominated by white men, and I think there's a desire to maintain that status quo, right? I mean, no one wants to give up power, and those with power in this country rule the country, and those with the finances call the shots. And so trying to carve a way into that industry was particularly challenging. I think as a woman, I was constantly doubted in terms of my ability to run a business and to really compete in this space. And I think as a person of color, and it's hard for me to say, I live at that intersection, right, of being a woman and a person of color, and hard for me to know which one was more the dominant obstacle. But I know
Right,
together it was a pretty tough road. Having to prove my credibility and my expertise to folks who don't necessarily believe that a black person is not could possibly be knowledgeable in such a highly technical area, right? so
right,
so I'm counseling hedge funds and really complex mezzanine funds and alternative asset strategy firms how to navigate the regulatory landscape, and how do they set up their funds in a way that's going to help them continue to be profitable and to gain investors, but at the same time make sure they're complying with all of the various legal rules and requirements to keep them out of jail, right?
right,
And and it takes a lot of trust for a client to pick a compliance officer, because it's got to be somebody that they feel pretty assured will teach them the right way that they should be running their firm.
mhm,
And trying to get asset management firms to believe that I was capable of doing that was always just a frustrating battle. The It just so happened that a lot of the clients that we were able to get were minority owned firms or women owned firms.
okay,
And sometimes they would get it more easily because they knew they were running a hedge fund, and they knew they
right,
were darn good at what they did. And,
right,
but it was, I would say that was the toughest part. I recall being in a sales finalist presentation, and I was jumping through hurdle after hurdle that was put in front of me, and answering questions and trying to prove, we can do this.
right,
And it wasn't until after the meeting, one of the people in the meeting, a white man, followed me out to walk me to the elevator. And he said, "My God, that was a great job, but I've never seen any other firm come in here and get that many hurdles to clear." And it just made me realize that it just had just become part of what I do without even questioning why is this so tough? Why am I getting 30, 30 questions here? But it just becomes one of those things that we do as people of color.
Right.
Growing up, my mother always said you're going to have to work twice as hard to get just as far as anybody else. And I think that was the enlightening moment for me, that is really true, and it's just something that we're just accustomed to doing.
Yes, 100%. Um, I think it's those that take that chip on their shoulder and really embrace it in their drive to accomplish success. Those are the ones that really are able to carve their path and change, um, overcome those obstacles, right?
Yep.
So you before even ICS, you've had such a lengthy tenure, just in financial services and all over the place, in corporate America, and now looking towards the future. What do you believe are the ways that we can start to change these obstacles and these barriers of entry for women, people of color, going forward? How should we tackle these things?
Yeah, so it's no one easy answer. It's going to take a number of different things that we should be tackling at once. I firmly believe that generational wealth is a way that we're going to start to ascend to higher ranks and higher levels of power. We can see in the political arena that we're taking on more of our place in the Senate and now in the White House,
Yeah.
right? And so that's the political sphere is one way where we can start to drive legislation and policy that's going to be more beneficial to people of color, and really start to level the playing field that way. I think another way is making sure that we are leveraging what for most of us is our greatest asset, and that is our career and our earning potential. There's some people that I see coming out of college who are not recognizing that their obligation is to make sure that they are leveraging as best they can what they've learned, and continuing to learn as much as they can, and continuing to navigate upward. There's a reason that not one single Black woman is the CEO of a Fortune 500 company today. And the fact that Black women are graduating from college and graduate school
Hmm.
at a higher rate than any other demographic, and yet we haven't been able to break through that glass ceiling.
Right.
And the same with people of color in general. I mean, you look at boards, you look at senior management teams, we're just not there. And so one of
Hmm.
the ways that I am trying to contribute to solving that problem is helping people arm themselves with the tools and strategies that they need. So many women come to me and they don't know what a sponsor is. They don't realize how important a sponsor is to your success. They don't
100%.
necessarily know how to brand themselves and how to promote themselves on social media, for example.
Hmm.
Their LinkedIn pages just sit there languishing, and I'm saying, well, gee, I never hear anything from you on LinkedIn.
Right.
And well, is that important? Well, heck yeah. Like, people have to know who you are, and
Yeah.
they have to think of you when there's a new opportunity, where there's a board seat, where there are so many ways to make sure that you stay top of mind for people that we never think about in our companies, in our industries. And so starting Jett Speaks was a way for me to try to at least do what I could do to address what I think is a huge problem in terms of our just lack of preparedness for the corporate game. And then the other piece of it is entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship, I think, is the one way where we can start to close the wealth gap that exists
100%.
among white people and everybody else, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of people don't necessarily understand how critical business ownership is to changing that wealth dynamic. A lot of people will have a great skill. I was visiting family last week, and my aunt is the best sweet potato pie baker you ever want to see. But she knows the last thing about starting a bakery or starting a
Right.
business where she's selling pies on the internet. That's just not something she was accustomed to learning growing up, and she knows nothing about it. And there's so many people though who have a great skill or great product, but they just don't know anything at all about running a business. And those are the people that fall into that 95% of businesses that fail. but shoring up those skills, letting people understand how to draft a tight business plan, how to go after funding, how to create an infrastructure that's scalable and repeatable. How do you market your business? How do you make sure that you're able to create an e-commerce structure around it? Those are things that we need to know more about in order to be more successful at business. And I think that's what I bring to the table as well. And so Jett Speaks is sort of my way of addressing some of the
Right.
gaps. There are
Right.
just so many of them that need to be addressed, starting, before we even get to college. How do we
Mhm.
make sure that kids have a dream and that dream motivates them to
Yes.
high school and finish with great grades and go on to college and want to pursue roles that are going to lead to wealth, right?
Right.
So one of the problems I recognize is that even though Black women are graduating from college at a higher rate than any other demographic, if you look at what we're graduating with degrees in, it's a lot of social service careers and careers that are just not going to create the wealth that we need to create as people. And so looking at finance, looking at technology and the biosciences and things that women traditionally don't go into, or people of
Mm.
color just never grew up learning about. We
Right.
tend to come to careers that of people that mirror the careers of people we know. And if we don't have the exposure to finance, we're not going to think finance as a career. And so that's where I think all of us could make a huge impact, is just to start to expose younger people about the various careers that exist. And then hopefully they will graduate with degrees and allow them to go into those untapped areas.
100%. So wow, a few things. One thing that really rung true with what you said was, not just also providing them with the tools, but helping them understand about these different dreams, right? You really need to help people understand, what's out there so that they actually get motivated to go and do it. They need to
Exactly.
really, they need somebody to tell them that it's possible. You are not at a disadvantage anymore. This is very reachable for you. And as well with just coaching, not only at the undergrad level, but earlier, that's something that we'll be doing through Diversifi Ventures. We have the
Awesome.
Junior Leaders in Finance program where we're going to be exposing kids to financial careers, giving them the
Mhm.
tool set so that they understand how to approach um, their undergraduate experience right from the get-go, right from freshman year, to start looking for those different experiences. So we
Mhm.
also here truly believe in that, giving them the tool set, and also just, being the ones to tell them that it is possible, right? And giving
Yeah.
them the motivation to pursue it.
Yep.
And that's one of the other things I wanted to go a little bit in depth with is you said that you provide a lot of that the tool set to grow and scale, in coaching through that Jett Speaks. So what does that coaching look like, on that individualized basis?
So we have group coaching and then we have individual coaching.
Okay.
The group the group coaching is where we find the most interest, probably because of the price point is a
Right.
little more manageable when you're signed up with a group. But I basically have built online courses around these particular areas. And so each course that I have is a 6-week coaching course. So the participants who enroll each week, they'll log on and they'll take the course for that week. It's a combination of video lessons, audio lessons, workbook, exercises. And then at the end of the week, we have a Zoom session with everybody who's enrolled in that particular cohort. And we go through the lessons for that week. And I share personal stories and some of my lessons learned and failures and how I came to realize that this works. And we cover things like finding the right mentor, finding the right sponsor. How do you create your own personal brand and the image you want to promote? How do you go about developing your own personal 30-second elevator pitch? Right? Things like executive presence and what that means. So we have a GPS 101, which is the guide to professional success for people of color, and then GPS 201, which is the guide to professional success for mid to senior level people of color. And in the 101, we talk about things like interviewing skills and working on resumes and how do you start to get on the fast track early on in your career in terms of how you carry yourself and your work product and your ability to not just get along with people, but to have people see you as someone who is of extreme high potential. And those things we teach, we do the group coaching course for people right out of college up
Mhm.
to like 5 or 6 years out. And
Okay.
then the GPS 201, same format, but it's more for people who are finding themselves stuck.
Okay.
And somewhere around mid-level management, someone is making a decision that this person has reached their peak and they're not
Mm,
really suitable for senior level management. So many people don't understand why their career gets derailed and why they get stuck. But with the GPS 201, we do a lot of self assessment work around that. We do a lot of work around being able to solicit and get real feedback, sort of in the 360 type of format. And how do you continue to promote yourself? Sometimes it's a matter of just recognizing that the company that you're with is not the company that you're going to retire with. And it may be time to, dust off the resume and move to kinder waters, where there are companies that are going to recognize that people of color do have what it takes to reach
right.
senior level management. And
Right.
being able to identify those companies is it's going to be key. And so we talk a lot about strategy in terms of how to navigate your career as well.
Right.
So it's good stuff. Yeah.
So for the students watching, or maybe just anybody that's just trying to break in, try to overcome these obstacles, what are some, just concisely, some of the best practices that they can be using right now, trying to get into where they're trying to go?
Yeah, I would say, especially during the pandemic, right? LinkedIn is probably the best tool that I can suggest. Make sure that your LinkedIn profile is professional, that it's
Hmm.
powerful. I say when you have the opportunity on LinkedIn to create your headline, make it something that's creative and thought provoking that stands out, not just your title or
Yeah.
not just you're a student at XYZ. Have it draw people in so that they want to read more about you and your profile and what, not just what you're doing, but what you aspire to do. And I think LinkedIn can also be a great tool, besides the fact that it led us to meet each other,
Yeah.
right? But LinkedIn is a phenomenal networking tool.
Right.
And I use it all the time to connect with people who I may share the same values with, or folks that are in a role that I want to learn more about. And I find that in the course of a week, I'll have several calls or Zoom meetings set up with people that I never would have met before. It's kind of like online dating, but for professionals,
Right.
right? So you get people that you've never met, and those people then introduce me to other people. And it just increases my exposure. It increases my ability to let people know what I'm doing and to hear about what they're doing. And in so doing that, networking becomes very real and beneficial. And people are in a much better position to help each other when they have a stronger sense for who people are, what they're about, and how they
Yeah.
can be helpful to other people. So I would say for the students, definitely make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile and that you're connecting with people that you find beneficial or think that might be beneficial to you, and reach
Hmm.
out to them. It's like
Yeah.
very rarely do I get a LinkedIn request from a student who asks to talk to me to hear more about my journey that I turn down. I mean, if I can't fit it in this week or next week, we'll fit it in next month. But I
Yeah.
think that is critical to helping the next generation find their way. And I think most people would agree and certainly be open to having those conversations.
Right. So what's next for Jett Speaks and the future of what you're doing?
So that's a question that I've been getting quite a bit of lately, given the sale of ICSGroup.
Right.
I am certainly enjoying the opportunity to do what I consider to be good work in,
Right.
in in sharing my knowledge and expertise and learnings to help people get where they need to go, particularly people of color and women. In terms of what's next for me, for full time, I'm not really sure. One of the things that I've been getting into a lot lately, I've always had a love for real estate,
Okay.
And I moved to Atlanta a year ago and definitely want to get more into the investment real estate investing market here. So a month and a half ago, I purchased my first investment property here in Atlanta. And so I'm working with the GC and the subcontractors to rehab this 10-bedroom monstrosity of a
Wow.
property.
Yeah.
But it's going to be sort of the first of many in terms of me just trying something different, something that I've always loved, but now I have the resources and the time to really delve into it.
Right.
So that's what I'll be doing for the time being. I'm just at that point where I just turned. A lot of people don't like to talk about their age, but 3 days ago I had my double nickel birthday. I turned 55. And so, and so I'm just really looking forward to what the next 10 years will hold for me because, everybody thinks of 65 as the year you finally say, okay, I'll just sort of retire and lay by the beach. But for the next 10 years, I've got, a pretty good horizon to do something completely new and different. And I've become sort of that transformative person where I've gone from corporate, I went from legal to corporate to entrepreneurship, and now I'm looking forward to what the next final chapter of my career will look like. So that's just exciting, and I'll be doing a lot of LinkedIn networking to try to get some ideas of what I might want to do next.
Yeah. And even in 10 years, I don't think it's going to stop you. You don't seem to be able to stay stagnant. It's always thinking that's the next thing. And again, we're super excited to support all that. For those of you, the people watching that would like to get involved with Jett Speaks, or be coached, or get involved in any of the different things that you guys do, how can they reach you, or get in touch?
Sure. I can be reached at mjett@jettspeaks.com. They can also go to our website at www.jettspeaks.com. Really easy to remember. We have lots of information about the various group coaching that we do, individual coaching. And one other thing I didn't mention, which is also critical, particularly for the younger generation, I think, is financial literacy. We are really, really strong on financial literacy and building that strong financial foundation. One of the things that I've done before I started Jett Speaks is I have a financial literacy nonprofit. It's called Financial Literacy for All. And through that nonprofit, we do a lot of financial literacy training for underrepresented communities. But through Jett Speaks, we do financial literacy for training for people who can afford to pay us to train them.
Right.
And training consists of every aspect you can think of, but our course that's most important for people that we get the most popularity around is our credit management webinar. We actually have one coming up. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but our events calendar is on our website. And that is a free webinar. So I encourage people to go to our website, sign up for that. We're going to be talking about everything from managing credit cards to deciphering which cards are the best cards to get, how to assess interest rates and all of the hidden language and hidden fees, how to manage your credit once you get your credit cards, and then the ever important credit score. Why your credit score is important, how to start to manage it strategically right out the outset from your very first introduction to credit, because your credit score is just so vital to being able to apply for a mortgage, for a car. People who have bad credit scores suffer almost a lifetime paying higher interest rates, not having access to credit, inability to make critical investments because they just can't seem to get their credit score right. And a lot of people come out of college not really understanding what FICO is or what it's all about until it's too late.
Right.
So I encourage everybody to register for that webinar. It's free. It's an hour. You can't get any better than that, but we'll be covering all the basics in terms of how do you manage credit and your credit score so that you can be a powerhouse. As you start to make money, you know a lot more about how to manage it. So it's all
Wow.
good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Medina, is there anything that we haven't covered, or any last words for anybody watching?
I would just say the fact that people are watching is the best step towards getting where you want to go. But don't just listen to this webinar and then move on to business as usual tomorrow. Think about what we've talked about. Think about your career. If you're entrepreneurship focused, think about what business do you want to be in and how do you get from just having your business be a thought to how do you turn that into a reality. And by all means, go to jettspeaks.com and figure out how I can be helpful, because that's why I started the company, because I can just do much more in greater numbers than I was able to do just mentoring people on one-offs. And so certainly take advantage of that. And again, certainly register for any of our free webinars. We have a real estate investing masterclass coming up in December. That one is for a slight fee, $299, because there's just so much chock full of information that goes in there. But if
Right.
investing in real estate is something that you ever thought about, that masterclass will be a way to help you get started in that as well.
Awesome.
Okay.
Medina, it's been great to have you on.
All righty, Sebastian, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.